Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are, whatever your time zone. Welcome. This is Digital Transformation Talk, and I am your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. Today, we'll be discussing how customer experience is being shaped by AI powered voice assistants. Now, the convergence of AI and voice assistants is revolutionizing how organizations interact with their customers. From intelligent virtual assistants to advanced natural language processing, businesses are leveraging these technologies to create seamless, intuitive, and effective customer experiences that are simply and were simply not possible a few years ago. Voice assistants and AI is giving organizations a competitive advantage. Look, we've been here in recent weeks talking about the impact of personalization, automation, AI on customer experience, and we all know the critical implications of providing superior service and experience, how it drives revenue and increases customer loyalty and ultimately business success. So there's one way that we can actually use AI to move the needle in terms of digital transformation and business optimization, and that is with AI powered voice assistants. Personalized interactions help us offer personalized interactions by understanding and responding to individual customer preferences. Streamline customer support. Streamlining and automating routine tasks and customer support is a major benefit. And this leads to quicker issue resolution, improved customer satisfaction, and overall enhanced efficiency. So along the way, the question becomes, how do you do it? And that's what we'll be exploring today with two great guests, trends in powered AI voice assistants, which deliver efficiencies and improve customer experience, how we might redeploy and upskill customer-facing people, resources on more complex tasks, part of your digital transformation, and ways that automation can and is actually driving customer loyalty and ROI. So all of that today with two great guests. But before I introduce our guests, I do want to say that I want to hear from you too. I'd like to encourage everyone attending today to participate. So please join in with your comments in the chat section. And if you have a question along the way, jump on in. I will attempt to get some of your questions into the show, the flow of the show, and we'll have a few minutes also at the end for your questions. All right, very good. Let's bring aboard our guests today, starting with Stephen Jufrey, a senior voice manager at Vonage. Stephen, are you with us?
I am
Well,
here,
hello,
Kevin.
Stephen.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi,
Great to
everyone.
see you again. Stephen is a voice and AI specialist at Vonage, who is an expert at targeted communications and engagement across industries and personalized communication solutions. But on a personal note, he enjoys hiking and bike riding along the coast near his home in LA. Whereabouts in LA? I spent many years in LA myself, Stephen. Where are you about?
Sure. Yes, I'm calling in from Los Angeles area. I live on the coast,
Ah,
and I think Kevin was asking where I'm from. It's a town called
Yeah,
Rancho Palos Verdes, so I have access to the coast and some nice bike rides, and I just kind of enjoy the weather too, for that matter.
perfect. Thank you,
very
Stephen.
good. I am back. Sorry for, I don't know what happened. I was gone there for a moment and now I'm back. Well, Stephen's Rancho Palos Verdes. All right, very good. Thank you for being with us today. Also with us is James Poulter. James is the CEO and co-founder of Vixen Labs. James, are you with us?
I am, Kevin. Lovely to be with you,
Hello,
calling
James.
from central London here in the UK.
Central London, very good. All right, well, welcome aboard. James is a digital marketing professional and a technology expert, CEO of Vixen Labs. Before founding Vixen, James served as the head of Lego's group's emerging platforms and partnerships team. So welcome aboard, James. All right, we're having some weird technical glitches today, so I am itching to get moving and get us into our show today. So I'd like to start, Stephen and James, by drawing our attention to an article published recently by Car Magazine about the use of ChatGPT in cars. The French car maker DS Automobiles is the first to introduce ChatGPT into its infotainment system. After a successful trial late last year, the generative AI service will be incorporated into its Iris voice assistant as part of its connected infotainment system. The automaker says its inclusion is a revolution in the automotive world and boasts that this is the first time the tech has been used in a car in Europe. And since its launch last late last year, more car makers are coming on board with similar solutions: Mercedes, Volkswagen, Peugeot, just to name a few. My question to the group is, do you feel this is a revolution in automotive customer experience? And if so, what other applications do you feel will follow, and will they be as disruptive as DS Automobiles feels that it will be in cars? Stephen, I'd like to start with you. What are your thoughts on the article?
Well, I think I guess you could say revolutionary, but I think it's an evolution of voice technology and for navigation specifically. I mean, if you could think about how navigation in a car worked like 10 years ago, it was, it was there, but it was kind of clunky. And even now with a lot of navigation technology, it's not as conversational as it could be. It has been getting there, as we see here. But it's like you get directions, then you say you want to make a stop along the way, and then you get a list of possibilities. With this technology, it's much more nuanced in terms of it's more conversational. You can ask it a question, and you can get a response in terms of options with natural speech interactions. It's a conversation, not two-way interactions. It's a conversation, and it's really no surprise that we're looking at this from a automobile navigation conversation standpoint, because I mean, I've seen stats that basically say that over half of the voice searches occur while driving. And so this is really a natural place for this type of evolution to start. And then when you think about the use cases for voice searches, driving directions is really one of the top categories, one of the top use cases for doing that. So the technology has really evolved, and it is to me a natural evolution of that technology in terms of it being more natural. And I think with ChatGPT, generative AI, you're getting that more not natural conversation flow, and so it's you got your multiple intentions can be answered with questions in a single statement. How do I get to X, and where can I go on the way to get a meal? So it's really very much a very natural way to communicate while driving. And this is just one use case where voice search is becoming very prominent, and how voice is very relevant and growing in terms of an application, because people are comfortable with using their natural voice to communicate.
Well, Stephen, I think you make a great point. It's this sort of natural conversation, the ease of it, but the natural flowing of it that I think is perhaps what they're talking about with the revolution. In the past, excuse me, very much of these sort of voice assistants solutions were very sort of car focused. Make a phone call or change the radio station, that kind of thing. But now with this new integration, drivers visiting a new place, for example, can ask about what it's famous for, or for information about its history. Or another example is asking the service to tell a story to distract your bored kids in the back of the car. So you're right. It's this very natural, indeed, a natural sort of language processing that's making the difference. James, I wonder where we go from here. What other applications do you feel will follow, and will they be as disruptive?
Well, what we've seen here with the evolution of the voice assistant coming into the car is the third step, I would say, in voice assistants in general, moving through the different modalities that we have available to us. First of all, these things started on our phones predominantly. If we think about the acquisition of Siri by Apple and integration there, and then Google Assistant following it. Then we've seen that move to smart speakers, and then we've now seen that third move to other types of devices, where we've gotten used to speaking to these things where they're ambiently around us. And obviously the car is a great environment for that because it's a closed system, but obviously your hands and eyes hopefully are occupied on the road. And so you have this ability to invoke this ambient assistant. We study this every year with the AI Consumer Index that we publish from Dixon Labs. And we found that now 25% of US Americans are already using a voice assistant in their car, and around about 20% in the UK and Germany. So this seems to be the trend that we see over time, people moving from around about the 70+% on their phone, around about half of people on a smart speaker, and now about 25% of people using it on their in their car. And I think the thing that we will see is that continued reliance upon these voice assistants in other ambient technologies. So we think about connected headphones like the AirPods that I'm wearing. I've been rocking a pair of those new Meta smart glasses for the past few weeks, which I absolutely love because I don't have that thing of looking like I'm listening to something in my ears, but I've got a voice assistant on the frames of my glasses. And we'll see many other, I think, applications of this coming into things like retail destinations and others. But what all of these ambient voice assistants give us is a new way for the customer, and that's what we're here to talk about, customer experience, to evolve. Because when computing is at the speed of voice and it's ambiently in the environment, whether that's at a retail kiosk, think about a drive-through scenario, and then paired with some of these owned assistant environments like a smart speaker or in the car, we open up new user experiences that were never possible. So I can now be driving down the highway and see a billboard for my nearest McDonald's, and I can go and pre-order my food in the car using the assistant, drive up to the drive-through window, say to another virtual assistant my order number, and I'm instantly ready to pick up. And that journey just was not possible before. So the melding together of these different ambient technologies, the underpinning AIs that are supporting them, and these different voice modalities, these are the things that come together to enable experiences that we weren't able to deliver on before. And I'll just touch on, Kevin, I promise I'll hand you back. Just if people want that research, it's freely available. I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you guys now. So if you want to go and grab that, you can go dig into that yourselves.
All right, very good. Well, it seems to me like the possibilities and the impact to customer experience is really wide open, as you mentioned. And so I'd like to get into what trends are happening today and really explore where we might find a value. Because look, we talk about digital transformation. To me, digital transformation is only as good as the impact that it gives me in terms of my company performance. And if I can find ways to provide a superior customer experience, have that be a differentiator, say with voice-assisted AI voice assistants, for example, that is where the rubber may meet the road. I made a joke. The rubber meets the road in terms of digital transformation. So let's get into our first discussion point, and that is trends in AI-powered voice assistants, which will increase customer satisfaction and communication. What trends, we're starting to hit on it, what trends are on the horizon today that are happening that we should be aware of, that if I am not paying attention, I may get left behind? Stephen, can you tell us a little bit more about where you see the future of AI-powered voice assistants in the next 24 months?
Sure. I do think that these natural speech interactions, they're really growing in popularity for self-service, for example, and really to voice. And the way we look at it, it's looking at how voice to communicate with a business, and doing that within voice, and doing it through social apps, through websites. And then having that private voice embedded within mobile apps and websites. So the notion of voice, phone calls will continue. Mobile phone use, we see, and when we survey consumers, that mobile phone use still dominates, and that kind of points to the example that we were just talking about. It's most widely used communication method. But how we're using voice, and then the notion of embedding it within applications, but voice for automated support with a voice assistant, and how technologies like ChatGPT, generative AI, large language models are making this more natural. You're seeing that voice now has these emerging voice methods all have an AI element to those. And so, and being able to do this with speed and availability, efficiency, what have you. So, we're seeing that, voice AI is really almost, turbocharging customer service and getting answers very quickly. But it's really more than just that. It's, we talk about how automation for self-service, but what we talked about with the previous example, what we're talking now is the ability for everyone with voice to actually have a personal assistant. We talk about co-pilots, for example. So this is not just benefiting self-service and automation, but it also complements the live agent experience in terms of having AI driving next best actions, supporting understanding sentiment, getting transcriptions, language on the fly, language translations. So voice is really kind of growing, and AI is definitely fueling that that growth.
So you're mentioning a couple of things. One is sort of the front end, which is the interaction where as a customer, I'm interacting with a voice assistant or an AI bot in some sort of way. But then on the back end, you mentioned just briefly the ability to sort of collect that data and then use that data in the business. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that works?
Sure, sure. So, there's the ability to kind of the data is what kind of is driving this personalization. So as a business, the data that you have in whether it be in your CRM, in healthcare, whether it be your patient engagement platform, ultimately it's driving the ability to grab that data and leverage it to make for a given customer, a given patient, to ultimately drive more targeted experiences, more personal experiences. And I know we're going to talk about personalization, but it's the ability to take that data and make use of it in a very intelligent way to drive that personalization. So that's really what's going on here, is that it's not just fast self-service on the front end, it's actually on the back end helping both the user, if they're doing self-service, or an agent if they're supporting someone, to be able to reference that data that in the background and being able to pull from that data in a very real-time manner, and the ability to update that data in a real-time manner as well.
James, what's your take on this? Now, it's not just about faster service. It's also about more complete service, or perhaps even what we might call superior service. How is that really a differentiator for me? I mean, if I can get my answered, if my question is answered immediately, that's great. But if it's answered more completely, more accurately, more personalized, that's even greater.
Yeah. So across whichever mode we're talking about, whether this is me speaking to a voice assistant, whether it's me talking like on a smart speaker, for example, so your Alexa's your Google Assistant, whether it's me talking to an interactive voice module in a telephone call, or whether it's even sending audio or text voice messages backwards and forwards on WhatsApp or ChatGPT style interfaces. The thing that really has changed the game here is the ability to bring a organization's own data to the AI party. Before, with these AI systems that were quite generic, we're quite reliant upon their knowledge base. What have they learned? If you think about Google is reliant upon the search of the web, what's already out there, but it doesn't have all the custom data that you have inside your organization. Now, with the power of what's called RAG, retrieval augmented generation, we're able to go and grab the data from an organization and actually bring that to the table. So this enables new experiences that, like you say, aren't just faster, but higher quality. Before, when we were trying to produce, say, an answer to a frequently asked question, we would have to guess all of the questions that a customer might ask, or maybe we spend a long time listening to them to work out what those questions are. And then we need to go write every variation we can think of an answer to that question. Now, using the power of the large language model, we just need to know all of the data that we have, all of the potential answers in the organization, and bring that to a model. And no matter what the question that someone brings and asks, it's going to go and retrieve the relevant information from that pool of answers. And this changes the game completely, because you'll never end up in a scenario when, no matter where you're asking that question, you end up with a computer says no scenario. The models will always be able to answer at least something from these answers. Now, they may not always be complete. They may not always do every possible task. And always, in some cases, you're going to have to bring a human into the loop. But the power of these models now is that rather than trying to guess every question to be asked and write every possible answer, we now can allow people to use their natural language, whether it's in text or audio or video format, and they will get an answer that is more satisfactory than it was before. And with that, to Stephen's point, the speed of this technology is now accelerating drastically to allow that to happen in near real time, which is actually what's enabled scenarios like we've seen this car scenario from earlier in the discussion. before, the speed just was not there. You would have had a very frustrating conversation with an assistant in your car, probably over a mobile hotspot connection level. You'd be waiting a long time for an answer. Now, with the speed and with the knowledge, we're able to unlock customer experiences that just weren't possible before. So I think that is one of the biggest leaps forward we've seen in the past 12 months. And in the next 24, it will be for all organizations to be looking internally and saying, what data is it that we have that can solve our customers' question? It may not be structured, it may not have been written, it may not be organized, but what data do we have that answers this customer need? And then let's find models that can help answer those questions to automate large chunks of what is often very repetitive manual tasks.
And Kevin, I think and James, I think the other thing that's going on here is that the technology is really becoming available to everyone. So if businesses of all sizes can benefit from this, it's really being democratized in terms of the ability to harness your data to serve customers in a more differentiated manner. And on the front end, to your point earlier, this is really true of, customers want to communicate the way they're comfortable communicating, the way they communicate in their personal lives. So these capabilities need to be available at any point in the conversation, on any channel, on any device, to be able to, kind of dig into that data and have a real personalized experience.
All right, all right, well, I have a couple questions, but first let me get to this comment or question from Bill. Thank you, Bill, for contributing today. Bill says, James makes an interesting point. At the moment, at least to me, generative AI is largely reactive. Where are we with regard to this capability of becoming predictive or anticipatory? Maybe I'm in the store and I'm shopping for milk, but what I really want is beer, right? And it's anticipating that, there's this, your favorite beers over here, or is there really going to be a time when it's sort of anticipating my needs and really getting into an anticipatory situation where it's really expecting what I want, not what I say that I want?
Absolutely. And this is where it really helps to kind of be clear about what we're defining as AI. The words AI are banded around in lots of different places, and it's actually quite a catch-all term for a number of different things going on under the hood. What we're trying to distinguish between is different types of machine learning. And so you have different types of ways of doing that. For a long time, we've had what are known as regression models. These are supervised learning, where we bring it a bunch of data and bring a model a bunch of data. It's able to predict certain things down the train, which might be things like the price of houses, for example, based upon their location and how many bedrooms they have. What generative AI is doing is being able to use unstructured learning, which is a different type of machine learning, to be able to produce answers in a way that it couldn't have done before through classification and categorization. And the real power is when these things come together. So generative AI, Bill, to your point of your question, is you say it's largely reactive. I think what you mean by that, and maybe clarify in the comments, is that we have to prompt these things to get an output. And in that way, they are reactive. But if we combine that with some of these regression models and some of these predictive algorithms, we can begin to see new opportunities happen. We've been looking at this in the call center, for example, of we can do a lot of prediction, for example, with your mobile carrier, based upon when you're most likely to want to renew your contract, or maybe when you're most likely to want to upgrade to add more data to a plan based upon your usage patterns. Now, that's got nothing to do with generative AI, but lots of supervised learning models would be able to give us that prediction. The bit where these things come together is when we can create a trigger from something like hey, we really think Bill's going to need to add 20 gig to his plan next month because we've seen this enough times, to actually generate a new custom plan that's never existed for anyone before, but now exists for Bill, which actually says, hey, Bill, every 6 months you gradually increase by 20 gig. Let's create a new plan that gradually builds and builds, right? This is when we bring these different types of AI systems together. And so what we want to be thinking about is not necessarily that there is always a generative solution or always a traditional machine learning solution, But the real beauty of these things is when they come together and they orchestrate together, the different application layers, bringing these things together. And most importantly, that they also can do things like predict where you want that message to happen. For me, I would much rather get a text message or an audio message on WhatsApp, because I'm here in the UK. That's the services that we use more often. But Bill, if you're in the south of the US, then maybe you want an iMessage business chat, or you want a virtualized call to be made to you to have that discussion. Depending where we are, our context is going to be different. So generative AI can also be helping us make the right decisions for a customer down the path as well.
How do customers feel about that? I mean, sorry, Stephen, go ahead. I'm interrupted.
No, I was just going to say, I think James explained that very well. I mean, I think just this point I want to stress here is that, these capabilities, these various disciplines of AI are very much complementary in terms of, like, when you look at generative AI for kind of more nuanced content creation, and then the conversation flows that happen with traditional machine learning and conversational AI really do come together to really provide a more holistic type of solution. But I think that was well explained, though, by James.
What do we need to do in terms of customer sentiment, in terms of this perhaps being intrusive to their lives? Some folks may not want this kind of, they may not want someone, a bot or an AI system anticipating their needs or disrupting their day, jumping in and saying, I mean, there may be some customer hesitation about this. And what do we do about that to overcome the sort of Luddite factor, if you will? James, your thoughts on that?
Well, sure. I think it just really depends on the situation. Like, so for example, if the technology is being used to constantly bombard me with offers and to buy something new, that could get a little bit intrusive. But if I'm in the middle of a support experience, I do think that knowing me and my needs and my history, how I feel, what I've done, how I've purchased in the past, can be a guide to ultimately providing me with that personalized experience that I expect, that I even demand, in terms of knowing me as a customer. So it really kind of depends on how the technology is being used. If it's constantly, kind of hitting at me to buy something new, that could again be a little bit annoying. But at the same time, I think the ability to look at me as an individual and target things to me in a very intelligent way, I think in many cases I would be, as a consumer, I'm receptive to that.
All right, very good. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the human resources aspects of this. One trend is certainly, and one benefit that is certainly mentioned in connection with this is, look, AI won't replace customer service agents and a human factor. We will be able to redeploy those folks in ways that perhaps are more value added. So our next topic of discussion is redeploying and upskilling your customer-facing human resources on more complex tasks as part of digital transformation. That sounds great. I think workers worry that won't really happen. Should employees be really worried about their jobs? And if so, what should they do? What should people do that are listening now to ensure that they have skills that will continue to keep them employed? James, what are your thoughts on redeploying and upskilling human workers?
So one of the things that we've seen, not during the AI revolution, but in the time before, is that gradually more and more centralization has happened, particularly when it comes to customer service and customer communication. We've taken more people off the shop floor. We've moved more people into the call center. If you go into any fast food restaurant kiosk up and down Oxford Street here in central London, where I am, you'll be very hard pressed to walk into a place where you don't order on a screen rather than talk to somebody in the foyer. And of course, we see examples of some people pushing back on that trend. Chick-fil-A being a great example in the US, where they want people out front and deployed. But broadly speaking, that's what we've seen. The thing that's happened, though, is that we've pushed a lot of that back office work onto people who are never seen by the customer. And now AI is the thing that's coming to automate many of those types of tasks. I think one of the biggest things is actually the thing that the AI can't do, which is go and have real conversations with real customers out in the world and actually going and gleaning the insights and the learning, which will then train the AIs to actually do the execution of those tasks. Because really, the execution side is the bit that is not interesting to anybody, but the bit that really builds customer loyalty, experience, trust, all of the things that we actually place a much higher price on as brands is that customer experience, that sense that the brand knows me and that it has a face and it has real people behind it. We know from the research we've run, I mentioned earlier, it's not that people don't want to deal with humans. Actually, they really do want to deal with humans. What they don't want to do is have a human that doesn't know how to get the thing done. And so if we can build tools that can get the thing done for them, great, but they'd rather still have the relationship with the human being where they can. And so we need to be working very hard on getting those people that were doing quite menial, quite repetitive tasks to deal with the higher order problems and get them back out in front of the customer and learning and gleaning insight and information from the customer. And in particular, because that's also what employees want. They don't want to be doing those repetitive tasks either. No one wants to be, kind of putting boxes, on a page and numbers in those boxes. They want to be actually trying to help solve real issues. So I think we should do that. And I think we should also be very cognizant of the fact that as much as this technology is moving so many things forward, and it is, I don't want to understate that actually it's the 80-20 principle. There will always be 20% of the stuff that just actually can't be solved by an AI, that we don't have the data, or we won't give it the data because of the privacy concerns, or it crosses that chasm, that uncanny valley where actually we would just rather talk to a human. And so there will always be roles for that stuff to be done by people in almost all contexts, I think. But we can make the lives of employees and customers better simultaneously by doing the same thing, which is putting them in relationship with one another.
All right. What essential skills should I be thinking of? I have an organization. I have many customer service agents, for example, perhaps deployed in many locations servicing folks around the world. I'm now moving forward with AI-powered voice assistants. I'm starting to transition my employee base, redeploying my human employees for more complex tasks. But what are some of the essential skills that I should then be upskilling my employees with, and which ways should I be moving that strategy forward? James, do you have a thought on that?
So one of the things that we need to do is understand that we're going to get the most efficiency when we can bring together human and artificial intelligence together. It's these things operating in concert with one another. You can think of it about, some of us can play the piano to the grade 1 level that we were taught at school, right? You can maybe do a scale or do do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, or whatever it might be. But none of us are concert pianists. What we need to be able to do is to train up these teams to be able to use these AI tools, because actually, then reality, most of the time, we're going to see that it's the AI tools and people in concert with one another working together, much like someone playing an instrument. And so the more we can upskill them in how to do things like get great prompts, how they can clean up and check data, both that's going into these models, but also what they're producing. And also that the human element here is very much, when it comes into that, being that gut check for what we're building. That the human is the one that brings the ethics, that brings the moderation, that brings the personas to these processes. And so we need to be imbuing these systems with personality, and that's what we need to upskill our teams in.
I think it's really almost too simple to say that we use AI to, for self-service, more self-service, and do that at greater scale, and then have an agent do the more complex tasks. I think they do, humans and AI needs to work in unison, and part of that is making it, to James' point, kind of the training, the coaching of agents. And I think the technology helps in that regard. When you have the notion of, say, an agent assist technology, coaching, co-pilots, whatever you want to call them, that also helps make the human agent much more, provide much more nuanced, detailed answers to customers' questions, and handle their issues much more thoroughly. And so it is very much complementary, but also what's happening on the agent side is that they're becoming smarter not well, they're becoming more attuned to what customer needs are because the data is guiding them, the tools are guiding them, and so that really does elevate the whole experience.
Well, indeed, Stephen, that's kind of where I was headed with this. Because that's where I get excited. Agent-assisted technology, or indeed something like clinician-assisted technology or attorney-assisted technology that is really blending the two, the human person and the AI system together to provide the superior experience. Do you have some examples of where that is happening today in the world of, say, like healthcare or legal services or insurance, those kinds of things, Stephen?
Yeah, I think healthcare is a really good example here because, you know, and I think it points to the importance of voice in using your natural voice to basically, you know, certainly there can be resource challenges within a healthcare organization, getting an appointment, talking to a doctor or an assistant. And so with AI, what you can do is in using your natural voice, you can basically start getting in a targeted way information on diagnosis, information on education on conditions that are more tailored to you. And so it definitely is complementing. Another use case that I heard last week, I was at a healthcare conference, was basically using generative AI, to basically handle crisis calls. And so that way we're not missing anybody. We're not missing an important, and we're not missing an emergency. So these are all tools that again complement what's happening on the physician side. So it really does kind of deliver more immediate results and results that ultimately can help people in many ways.
All right, we are here today with James Poulter, CEO and co-founder of Vixen Labs, and also Stephen Giuffre, Senior Voice Manager at Vonage. We're here talking about how customer experience is being shaped by AI-powered voice assistants. And if you have a question or a comment for our guests today, please feel free to pop them into the chat feature. We will have some time here in just a few minutes for your questions, so please do. All right, our third discussion point today, gentlemen, we've already sort of been hovering around that, is how automation is driving customer loyalty and ROI. Will customers be more loyal to organizations that have these systems in place, or will there be a tendency to be more loyal to those organizations that have a more human forward approach to customer experience? James, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the answer is yes and yes. I think that, one of the things that we know is that there will always be outliers to any of these scenarios. You look at the direction of travel in retail, for example, of brands like Apple, or say Gymshark, one of the big kind of incumbents that's that's breaking up the kind of the fitness industry. They've just opened a big studio and a gym here in the center of the city. Even though they're an entirely e-commerce brand, we see the likes of ASOS and others also opening up retail stores. Why are they doing that? Doesn't that make, I thought we'd done away with retail. Well, no, of course, there are always going to be some brands that people want to connect with, and that loyalty is built through that human connection. But these are also brands that have been built back on the back of AI and automation and technology and social media from the ground up. So I think what we will see is that if brands are able to deploy this technology in a way that gets out of the way of the customer and allows them to get the thing done that they want to do, particularly when it comes to a few scenarios like product selection, like managing accounts, like administration of services and customer service, things like returns. Simple tasks like that. If you can get out of the way of that and make that experience not just a viable one and a feasible one to be done by AI, but also a delightful one to be done by AI, then yes, I think you will see an increase in loyalty and ROI because customers will stay around for that. But equally, we shouldn't be just trying to kind of create this artificial intelligence nail and kind of hit it with the same hammer every single time. Our goals when we set AI strategy should not be AI at all costs. It should be trying to solve user problems and building with that in mind. And if the AI is the thing that does that job, then all the better. But there will always be scenarios where that's not the case. And we've seen examples where people have tried to introduce chatbots or other assistant systems in the past where they haven't been fully thinking about the real power of these things properly, and ended up faltering and often retreating from them. So I think we will see that there will be brands that do want to take a kind of technology agnostic kind of approach. We've seen this for a long time in the luxury sector, for example. We've seen that it can be really helpful in the travel sector, but also go horribly wrong because of the sheer amount of variables of booking a flight or a train. So we do see there are certain sectors where there'll be a lot of opportunity for automation, but there may be customers that are resistant to it over time.
Yeah, I think the message here is not just deploying AI for AI's sake, that it provides automation and gets things done faster. It's really more about customer engagement first. What are your customer engagement goals? And then ultimately, how can AI be a part of that strategy? What are the use cases that you're trying to automate? Where do you need support for your human agents? And so, basically working with say a conversation designer, with the resources that are available, really trying to outline what your goals are. What interactions do you think require automation? What kind of KPIs are you looking at? So it really is more about evaluating your customer engagement goals. And from an ROI standpoint, certainly when a voice agent technology can be 10% of the cost of a human agent, but that's really just part of the story here. As we mentioned, there's that important of having that balance where you have the right level of human engagement as well. And so I think it's really very much, what are your goals? And then ultimately working with the right teams, how can AI help you achieve those goals?
All right, very good, gentlemen. Well, all right, we are here with James Poulter and Stephen Giuffre. Gentlemen, we have reached the action item round of the program today. I'm wondering if you could please both provide us with one quick action item that we can use to take advantage of the ideas and advice today. James, do you have an action item for us?
Yeah, my action item is, if you're just getting started with this idea, I mentioned it earlier, this idea of RAG, this idea of bringing your own data to help build your own customer experience. There's loads of places that you can go and give that a go. And my first call to action for everybody is go get yourself a subscription to ChatGPT Plus. That means that you're also not training their future models on any of the data. I'm not incentivized to promote this. I would say start there, but what I would ask you to do is go and try and build your own custom GPT. So building a GPT basically is essentially tuning the main model of ChatGPT to do a very specific task. And you'll do that by maybe bringing some existing documents or data that you have and giving it a specific set of tasks, something you're going to do all the time. So think about your average week. If there's something that you do 3, 4, 5 times a week that you think, oh, that's a task that I could really do with automating, go and play around with ChatGPT and see whether or not a custom GPT can maybe become the thing that does that again. To make that concrete for you, as an example, I have to do a lot of presentation outlines. So I've uploaded loads of examples of previous presentations I've done to a GPT. And now when I'm trying to start doing an outline for a new topic, I just go to it and say, I want to do an outline, do it in the style of James Poulter with this topic, and it will give me a very quick outline. And it's not just generic, it knows the way that I like to structure my thoughts and experiences. So that might be something that everyone at home can go and have a go at.
Nice. Thank you, James. That is James Poulter, CEO and co-founder of Vixen Labs. You can find him and find out more at vixenlabs.co. Thank you, James. All right, Stephen, do you have an action item for us today?
Sure. I think, I'm suggesting maybe, kind of learn more about the AI opportunity and how customer engagement, how AI can fuel customer engagement. We've got a couple of resources that I'll point you to, more on the thought leadership side. If you go to the Vonage site, there is a global customer engagement report. We surveyed over 7,000 consumers this past year and produced a report. And it talks about the way that customer engagement expectations, how they want to communicate with business. And voice is a key part of that. And so highlighting how voice is being used. I cited a couple of examples today in terms of how voice is evolving. You learn, it's an opportunity to kind of learn more about what consumers are expecting, and how they are communicating with businesses. And then there's also another piece on elevating customer engagement with AI, an ebook that also provides another thought leadership piece on the ways that AI can elevate your business. So I recommend both of those as resources to perhaps review when you have the opportunity.
All right, excellent resources with Vonage. Well, all right, Stephen Jufrey, thank you so much. Stephen is Senior Voice Manager at Vonage. You can find Stephen and find out more at vonage.com. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation today. Your ideas and your advice were spot on. I hope that we get a chance to talk again soon. And to everyone joining us today, thank you too. Join us again next time on March 12th when we have another great panel of guests discussing the topic of what's next for your digitized supply chain. That should be another great discussion. In the meantime, if you'd like to find me, you can do so on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there. Check me out. I'm Kevin Crane. And check out my weekly audio podcast, the Digital Transformation Podcast. But for now, this will do it for this episode of Digital Transformation Talk. And until next week, I'm Kevin Crane. Thanks for watching.